world is on lockdown. I'm Nicholas Johnson, and this is the Space Warehouse. Last week, you may have seen, was my introduction to science in the she shed. It all seemed like it was going pretty well, and then pretty suddenly it was no longer going pretty well. But what that made clear to me was things in there are going to get wet sometimes, and things in there are going to start on fire sometimes. And then chemical reactions are probably going to spill out of whatever container they're meant to be in. So I needed to replace the wooden work surface that I was using with a concrete one. I've never poured a concrete benchtop before, but now I've watched a couple of YouTube videos about it, and so I'm going to give it a try. So here's how I'm doing it, step by step. What I'm using to make the form for the concrete is this stuff. You've almost certainly seen it before. If you have a cheap computer desk, it's almost always made out of this. It's called melamine. It's really just a particle board that's been laminated with some kind of, I don't know, slippery top. They make the slippery tops in all different colors. Home Depot sells it in white. It cuts really cleanly, and concrete won't stick to it when it dries, so it's perfect. The internet says I cover that in either olive oil or WD-40. I have WD-40, so I'm gonna use that. There are two secrets we're taking advantage of here. One's called flow control. It's this magical dust you mix in with the mortar mix, and it just liquefies it without adding extra water. So you don't jeopardize the strength of the concrete or mortar mix, but you do get it to be really liquidy, plasticized, so that it mixes and pours more like pancake batter than peanut butter. Second one is this drill attachment that allows you to mix without killing yourself. In a bucket, ready to pour. Alright, so I'm using black silicone caulk. And the only reason I'm using black silicone caulk is because every single person that I saw on the YouTube doing the same project used black silicone caulk instead of regular stuff. I don't know. You might think concrete is like this rough material, but in reality, usually just the cases that it's used, they make it rough, like on the sidewalk, so you have grip, but concrete can be as smooth as glass. And so every little mistake I'm making right now is going to be translated to the final tabletop, which is fine. This is for my little laboratory. So you have to keep in mind, whatever this looks like exactly is how the concrete's going to end up. And concrete's pretty hard to change once it's done. So I'm using the back of this Sharpie pen to try to make like a, well, that's not going to work very well, to make like a rounded edge for the tabletop. Even if it's messy, if it's consistent, taking advantage of the fact that concrete is going to show literally every little nook and cranny that is in the mold, I'm going to print out some vinyl. And if you have the means to do this, don't forget that you have to flip it so that it will be reversed. Otherwise it'll be, you know, backwards on the table. I've never done this before. I don't know that it'll actually work, but it seemed like a cool idea. To coat the whole thing with WD-40 so that it doesn't stick. Alright, it's time to make our concrete. think dump in water first. I don't know how much water we're supposed to. I grossly underestimated the amount of water that you need for a bucket of concrete. I also was using a bucket that was a little too small here. The regular Home Depot buckets, you should put about 5 quarts of water for a bag of mix. It looks like I did like 2.5, which immediately became evident the moment I tried to mix it all together, and it kind of turned into a brick. Adding the flow control helped, but I did put more water in there to get this consistency here. That's a little movie magic for you. This first batch was way too dry and actually not mixed well enough either. It did end up making a super cool, like, it looked really cool on the table when it was all done, but it was done wrong. The internet makes mixing this look a whole lot easier than it is. Concrete with another. So I broke all the rules. I made it extra soupy, which is going to make it extra weak, but it's a tabletop. It's not a garage floor. One thing I do know though, you gotta beat out the bubbles. Look at that, you can see the bubbles popping at the top there. Okay, let's reflect on some things I've learned just now. Number 1, if you're gonna do this, don't wear your favorite pants and shoes. Unless you're super good at this and you do this all the time and you know what you're doing and you're not gonna turn your drill way too high, you're gonna make a mess. I don't know if they're ruined, they're in the wash, we'll find out. Number 2, make sure you have all of your tools in one spot, or all of your things that you need, whatever amount of water, however many buckets you need. Another bucket full of water so that you can wash off everything right away, because concrete dries super fast, or Quikrete dries super fast. Thing to flatten out over the top, you gotta have one. I had to go run around behind the shed and find one. All of your stuff should be in one spot. Make sure the thing's level, because I don't think that is. After your mix has set, and it's been, or at least throughout the first couple hours, you're gonna want to keep some water on hand, and when you start seeing these like lighter patches, you want to keep it damp. You want this to dry really, well, not really slowly, but the slower this dries, the stronger it is. For some reason. If you know that reason, please explain it to me in the comments. Okay, welcome to the next day. We're gonna take this thing apart and see what happens. Okay. Whoa. Okay, it weighs a lot. That holds up. That looks really cool. Oh, why is concrete so heavy? I couldn't lift it. The amount of concrete I used ended up weighing about 425 pounds. Sarah's dad and I kind of just slammed it down on the ground a couple of times. But I like it. I have some 2-part epoxy resin. I'm gonna fill in all the holes, and I'm gonna make like a flat glaze epoxy top. and just entomb this thing, and I think it's still going to be great. I think it's going to be great. When doing an epoxy resin pour, one of the biggest things that you mess up because of impatience is mixing. So the hardener has to go in equal parts to the resin, and then you have to stir it for like, I mean, you should stir this for like 5 minutes. So I'm going to stir this for a while. While I don't hate what happened here, I did not accomplish what I set out to. I poured resin down into these pretty big voids, hoping that I would fill them up. Did not take into account the fact that the bottom side of the table is not flat at all. That resin just dumped down through that crack, hit the table, and spread out. What I'm going to do is run a bead of silicone caulk around the whole underside of the thing, and then get a lot more resin and just fill the whole thing up. So it's kind of like a concrete slab encased in resin. So now I've got essentially a gasket around the whole underside of the table. It's actually a few days later, and if I'm being honest, we messed up the pour a little bit, but really, I think that it ended out looking really cool. I have this really fat vinyl tape. I'm gonna put that around the outside and build up like a, I don't know, a dam, I guess. And then I bought a couple gallons more resin that I'm gonna pour, and I'm gonna try to fill up the entire surface of the table, just like a quarter inch, half an inch of resin, clear, totally see-through resin, so that I will sort of encase the tomb of broken concrete into a perfectly flat and level surface. That will be the final table. Let's see how that goes. Well, this is it. It looks perpetually wet, but man, it is a spill-proof surface, and if everything turned out as good as this corner here, I would go ahead and say this is perfect. This just looks so cool. Don't expect that you're going to nail it after watching one YouTube video on how to do it. That's what I did. Otherwise, I think this went awesome. And then don't be afraid to mess it up and do it again, because really this whole thing was like $100, and I could just do it again. I'm gonna use it until it breaks, and then I'll make another one, and I'll do a way better job. Initially, I thought this was gonna be like, I'm gonna make the YouTube video, the standard for how to make a concrete benchtop easily in an hour. But instead, I think I'll title this, What Happens When You Think You're Gonna Make a Concrete Benchtop After Watching a Single YouTube Video for some other guy who did it really easily. If you like this video, please hit the like button down below and consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss the future stuff that I make. Thanks for watching.